What's up everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today guys, we are continuing on with the tier lists. We're moving on to series 2. Didn't watch the last video, I did a full tier list of series 1 of Doctor Who. Today guys, we're moving on to series 2, which as you guys all know is definitely one of the series of all time. I don't like this series. I'm just gonna get out of the way. I do not like this series at all. Heads up guys, sorry to break it to you. This series just, I'm sorry, it just kind of, it's terrible. It's just not good guys, I'm sorry. I think a lot of people my age, you know, a lot of Doctor Who fans in general, even people who aren't my age, I think a lot of people will have nostalgia for this era of Doctor Who, like 2005 to 2008. Have a lot of nostalgia for it, and you know, I did too. I have watched these episodes, all of them, many times. But recently, and by recently I mean in the past couple of years, going back to these, I am reminded again and again that they are just not good. Like, these episodes aren't good, the series isn't good, so you know, we're gonna have a great time. This is gonna be a great tier list. So we're not gonna be starting off with the Christmas Invasion because, as I said in my previous video, I'm gonna be saving the Christmas specials for their own video, you know. I wanna save them for their own video. Now, I understand a lot of people who might click on this video, in fact, I'd say 100% of them do actually like this series. So, you know, already off on a bad foot, and I'm gonna put myself even more on a bad foot by saying New Earth is solidly D tier. This episode, yeah, well, you know, you guys are lucky that I'm not putting in an F. Let's just say that. There is a lot I can say about this episode that I won't, you know. I'll try and be nice to it, you know. Let's list the pros. It has that ship from Attack of the Clones at the very start. I guess, you know, a New Earth is a somewhat original idea. That's about all of the positives. I really don't like the location. I really don't like the idea of the cat nuns. The CGI is terrible. Falling down the lift sequences are terrible. I guess there's that one funny line where David Tennant says, "Still got it." That's like the peak of the episode. I do not like the rest. Now, spoiler alert, to get out of the way, I did let it slip in the previous video, but I really do not like the Doctor and Rose, especially in this series, insufferable. In series 1, I think that the Doctor and Rose together are so-so, you know, but as individual characters, they're both great. I think that in this series, they are bad together, and they're kind of bad on their own as well. Like, Rose in this series is such a downgrade. You'd think she would have learned from her mistakes in the previous series and, you know, maybe matured a little bit. Nope, she's still a dumbass, and so is the Doctor. The Doctor and Rose bring out the worst in each other, and basically they undermine every single episode they're in, and I just don't have fun watching them. Now, you know, I will say that David Tennant is great. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that David Tennant at the very least is like not a bad Doctor. Whether or not he's as great as, you know, he's hyped up to be, that is to be seen. I'll detail it more in the coming tier list videos, but I think we can all agree that he's definitely not bad. In fact, I don't think any Doctor's bad. I think they're all good. I'm a Doctor Who fan. Maybe I should do a Doctor Who tier list, like a tier list of the incarnations. Maybe I should do that. I do think David Tennant is actually a very good Doctor, just not in this series, and especially not in this episode. Be lucky I'm not putting it in F. In fact, fuck you guys, it's F. It's just not a good episode. Okay, let's go into Tooth and Claw. Where the hell do I want to put this? D? C? C. I'm gonna put it in C. I mean, I am this close to putting it in D, but I feel like that would be unfair. Okay, I've never been too big of a fan of this episode, but there are some people who really go out to bat for it. I feel like they would want me to put it in A. No fucking shot, guys. The series arc for series 2, it's just nothing. Like, I guess it comes to a culmination in the finale because that's set at Torchwood. I guess it's neat lore. It isn't necessarily a bad story arc. It just isn't enough to save an episode, which in my opinion is quite mediocre in Tooth and Claw. You've got the werewolves, you've got the setting, you've got the monks, you've got David Tennant do a Scottish accent, right? And all of that is I don't want to say fine because, you know, I'm not actually a really big fan of it. But how about this? Let's make a deal. I'll raise it to C and say, I see how you guys can like it and I don't. How about that? Let's call it even. Up next is School Reunion, this is I think the most controversial and complicated episode I'll have to talk about on this list. Now, I already started my video off in a controversial spot by saying that this series fucking sucks, but it does, you know? And I have to say it because I have to be factual. I'm not a liar, guys. And I hate to break it to you as well, guys, but this episode, it does Sarah Jane so dirty, like, it's unbelievable. In fact, I would call it a straight up character assassination. Before I get ahead of myself, let me just go over the positives of this episode. Number 1, K9, he's great. Number 2, I think that the final act, right, like the third act of this episode is pretty damn solid. I would say that the scene where Sarah Jane meets the 10th Doctor for the first time, I would say that's great. I would say that's genuinely a great scene. Very top tier stuff. I think the Krillitines actually are a pretty good villain. The Krillitines and Anthony Head, yeah, they're great villains. But still, I think my criticisms stand. I think the first 2 acts are pretty damn bad. I think Sarah Jane acts not how Sarah Jane would act. I don't think. I mean, Mickey says it's when the missus meets the ex. Sarah Jane isn't an ex. I would much rather watch Sarah Jane just getting along and having fun in another episode of Doctor Who again than this like bratty argument. I don't want to see that. I think the scene where the Doctor goes all angsty and talks about how everyone dies around him, that is so bad that it kind of undoes the goodwill of the previous scene with Sarah. I kind of want to just dump it in C tier because I mean it does have some good elements, but I feel like people would kill me if I didn't at least put it B tier. But fuck you guys, it goes in C tier. And Tooth and Claw goes in D tier. Fuck you again, times 2. The girl in the fireplace. Fuck you guys, it's C tier. Now this is another one from famous writer Stephen Moffat. This was a very successful episode. Apparently people really like this one. I do not see it. I don't like this one at all. I don't like Madame de Pompadour. I don't like the actress who plays Madame de Pompadour. I don't like the idea that the Doctor would suddenly get like super affectionate with just some random person who he met for like literally 3 minutes. The clockwork androids, I guess it's cool in the production design, but on the actual page, like writing wise, I don't like it. I mean, I just don't really care for this episode at all. I mean, Rose and Mickey literally have nothing to do the whole time. I will say that the design of the spaceship is cool, at least. I will say that the production design on the clockwork androids is good, but I will put it in C tier because I think the production design does save it. And I do think there is that one good scene where there's the clockwork android in the corner and it's ticking. In my opinion, this is Stephen Moffat's worst episode before he becomes showrunner. Right now, a lot of people will really disagree, but that's just my opinion, guys. That's why it's my tier list, not yours. And next up is Rise of the Cybermen. I'm gonna put that right next to Tooth and Claw. This episode is bad. I don't understand how anyone could like this one. The pacing is so bad. It's not the real origin of the Cybermen. It's lazy, it's contrived. Really don't like the design of these Cybermen. I don't like how they just say delete, delete, delete all the time. I feel like if this was an hour long, or should I say a 2-hour long two-parter instead of a 90-minute two-parter, maybe, because I'm gonna put Age of Steel right next to it in D tier. I mean, I like the actor who plays John Lumick. I think he does a good job considering that the character he was given makes literally no sense and is just a Cyberman Davros, but worse, right? And then he becomes the Cyber Controller, which I guess I will give it this. Nicholas Briggs' voicing of the Cybermen is really great. I mean, the Cyberman design is just garbage. You see, the thing is that there's a small quirk in Doctor Who in that the Cybermen, despite being up there in the holy trinity of Doctor Who villains, they have a little problem, which is that like 90% of their episodes are shit. They're just not good. You'll see a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I'm a massive Cybermen fan. I love when the Cybermen are done right. You see, the problem is that the Cybermen are never done right. And this episode is them not being done right. I guess you could say the soundtrack in these 2 episodes is pretty good. I guess that's what saves it from being F tier. The story beats that it goes through, I mean, the ending is nonsensical. The fact that these 2 episodes are incredibly popular, but the Cybermen episodes in the Chibnall era are like hated, like I don't understand. If these episodes released in the Chibnall era, there would be riots in the streets. And then we've got an episode which will immediately join them in The Idiot's Lantern, which is just, I mean, what is it? I want to put this episode in D tier because I don't want to oversaturate F tier. This is like very low D tier. Do I even need to go into it? The ending is insulting. Apparently people like The Wire, like as a villain, not us. I guess you've got the start of that running joke with the magpies. Every single shot, Dutch angle, and the Doctor's hair is ridiculous. But now guys, finally we are on to episodes that aren't complete fodder trash. The Impossible Planet is a solid B tier episode. Now the Ood are a bunch of like really mixed metaphors, all stumbling over each other always, and it's quite confusing, but I feel like it gets more confusing in the series 4 episode rather than in this one. In this one I feel like the Ood, they make sense, whereas later on there's just too many metaphors walking over each other for it to be cohesive. I think that the mystery box element in the Impossible Planet does make it better than the Satan Pit, but I do think the Satan Pit is not bad enough to put it in C tier. I think the Satan Pit has a lot of really solid elements. I think the voice work of the devil, I think the design of the devil is really good. I think the design of the Ood is really good. I think that these two episodes are perfectly serviceable, and it's only because every single episode in the series before them has been complete trash that a lot of people will put this in A and S. I should probably tell now that it's not that I don't like the idea of a doctor and companion relationship, or like a doctor and companion love story, or even like just a doctor love story with someone who isn't a companion. It's just that it's never done well, and it's always goofy, and this series is goofy. Another thing that's goofy is the gun effects in this episode. I don't know why they look so weird here. They literally don't look weird in any of the other episodes. It's just here. I would say the directing is good though. I think B tier is where these episodes belong. Well, now we're on to Love and Monsters. You know, everyone loves this episode. Am I right, guys? Kind of want to put it in C. So people really hate this episode, and I kind of get why. And then on the other hand, people love to say that this episode's like really underrated and it's actually a masterpiece. I think it has some really good moments. I think it's got its pros. It definitely has its pros. It definitely has its cons too though. Like, let's be real, let's not be blinded. Do I want to put it in B? That'll piss people off. If I put Love and Monsters above School Reunion and Girl in the Fireplace, yeah, that'll really piss people off. Maybe I should do it just to annoy people. Nah, I think C tier is fair. I mean, the Absorbaloff, it's actually a design by a kid. It was a Blue Peter competition, if I remember correctly. I mean, it isn't actually a bad design. I think Peter Kay is pretty funny with it. I think the ending may actually be the highlight. Not the ending scene that you're thinking about, but the bit where the Absorbaloff chases him and then the doctor shows up, because I feel like it starts pretty well. I think the episode actually starts off pretty well, apart from that goofy ass Scooby-Doo scene, which, I mean, the edits are too obvious for it to be pulled off well. But, you know, I still think that, you know, the callbacks to the previous episodes, all of that, I think that helps bridge the series together. Genuinely, I really do think that. The subplot with Jackie, I skip that every time, usually. I had to watch this episode in full. I had to rewatch this whole series in full, guys, for this video. It was not a fun time. I especially did not like New Earth and Rise of the Cybermen. Those were my two least favorite episodes on this rewatch so far, you know. Foreshadowing, guys. But yeah, I think C is fair. It has its pros, it has its cons. And now we're on to Fear Her, which is pretty... is it solidly F? Is it solidly F, or is it high F, low D? That's the question. Because this episode, I mean, spoiler alert, I really hated this one too. It's definitely not as bad as Rise of the Cybermen, which means it has to be D. I really didn't like Rise of the Cybermen on this rewatch. I think that it's so weird, because I think The Idiot's Lantern is a worse episode than Rise of the Cybermen, but I just really didn't like rewatching Rise of the Cybermen. Anyway, we're meant to be talking about Fear Her. Episode sucks. The ending is terrible. The beginning is terrible. The middle is terrible. I guess you could say the concept isn't terrible. Maybe it could have been done well in a universe different to this one. Damn, I'm really split between F and D. I'm gonna put it D, just because I put Rise of the Cybermen in D, so I feel like Fear Her has to be in D. And here we are already. We're at the finale. Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. I really like Army of Ghosts. I'm actually gonna throw a curveball and put Army of Ghosts in S. I think this episode is pretty damn great. It's a pretty damn great setup. I think that the cliffhanger is really what makes me love this episode, but I think genuinely on rewatch, like looking at it from a critical view, I mean, I've looked at these episodes, I've rewatched them so many times, I've looked at them from every single possible view. Looking at it this time around, I genuinely think it holds up. I mean, the structure is great. The unveiling at the very end is of course great. I think that finale is top tier. I think the episode actually looks pretty good. The problem with series 2 is that the aesthetic is very flat. I mean, apart from that, I really don't like the visuals in this series. But I think Army of Ghosts looks pretty good. I think the location is good. I think the casting is good. I think Jackie really gets a chance to shine in this episode. Mickey comes back, he gets a chance to shine in this episode. The soundtrack is great. As I mentioned like 3 times already, the cliffhanger is great. I would put it S. I mean, it isn't on the level as the S tier episodes of last series, I would say. Actually, I'd say this episode is on the level of Aliens in London. But can part 2 live up to the hype? Well, I'm gonna be nice and put it A tier. I'm gonna play nice, guys. I'm gonna play nice. You can put down your pitchforks. I'm playing nice. Doomsday has a really solid opening half. I'd say the opening half is on the level of an S tier episode. The second half lets it down. You know, a lot of people were really invested in the emotional climax, you know, of Rose and the Doctor. You know, they were really invested in that relationship. I was not. So when that stuff becomes the main focus, the episode slows down to a snail's pace. And even then, all of that is undermined mind in the cliffhanger at the very end where Donna shows up. Like, I can't imagine being really invested in that episode and like crying and all of that, and then Donna shows up and you're expected to, I don't know, laugh or whatever. It's a strange choice, let's just say that. The way they deal with the Cybermen and the Daleks, I mean, I guess it's fine, right? You know what I mean? You've got to deal with them somehow, even if it is I just pulled the solution out of my ass. I feel like this is another episode where if it aired in the Chibnall era, people would be throwing tantrums left, right and center. But you know, people are more forgiving of the episodes back in these days. A lot of Cybermen fans throw hissy fits that they couldn't beat the Daleks, but sorry to break it to you guys, but the Cybermen are frauds and the Daleks are actually good villains. So all of this Doctor and Rose stuff, which is a main focus in this episode, it just goes right through me. I think the battle scenes are really good. I think the writing, the confrontation between the Dalek and Cybermen, that is up there. That's a really great scene. I mean, yeah, I think it's just an A-tier episode. I mean, part of me wants to be a bully and, you know, move it down to B, but I can't do that in good conscience without trolling, because it is a great episode, even if the emotional part, which is what a lot of people really love about it, is the thing that I don't. But I guess that's been the case with the whole season, because I'd rate this series very low. If I had to give this series a rank, I'd probably put it in D as the average, right? Even if the finale is very good. Well, that's my list. I'm sure you loved it. I'm sure you all love me. Guys, this is the problem. I have to be honest. It's to a fault. I can't lie and cope and say that this series is good when it's not. But you know, don't worry. Next video, I won't have to cope, because series 3 is actually good. Let's go! Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to leave a like and subscribe.